Croeso, Difda, Bernachtin, Gia Hwitch, Fulcher, Daymat. Welcome to the Celtic Myths and Legends podcast. I am your humble host, Sian Esther Powell, and I'm going to be taking you on a journey through all the myths and legends of the 6 Celtic nations. That's Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, Isle of Man, Scotland and Ireland. Welcome. Hello everyone. This is going to be a short and sweet episode, or I don't, maybe it's not going to be so sweet actually. It might be sour. It might be sour and spooky and swampy because, this is not going to be a sweet one. I've heard it from lovely people before who would prefer me to get something out, something nice, something fun, something where I'm enjoying myself and hopefully you're enjoying it, and we talk about something really cool that is just a little bit shorter, but at least I'm getting stuff out, than me constantly being paralysed by my weird, potentially ADHD-sourced kind of perfection streak, which makes me just think, I can't post it. I'm not in the right mindset. It's not going to be absolutely 100% perfect right now, so I can't post it. So if this turns out to be rubbish and you think, do you know what? Maybe we should wait 6 months for every episode. If this is going to be the monthly output, then don't let me know, because I'm quite fragile at the moment. I have post-viral fatigue. So I'm quite bubbly right now because I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be talking to you all. I feel like that's my phone buzzing. I'm very popular. Let's turn that off though, because that's quite unprofessional, because obviously all of my other episodes are like the peak of professionality. Anyway, I'm happy to be here speaking to you all, because although I've heard from many of you that it feels like you're listening to a friend when you listen to my podcast, I don't know if you realise that goes both ways. Like, I know that I'm sat in my room by myself right now, talking to a microphone. I know that. I know I'm not talking to friends, but the vibe, I've somehow cultivated the vibe and tricked myself as well. So whenever I sit down with the intention to make a podcast, I open up my little Audacity, I get the microphone out and whatever, I always suddenly feel like I am talking to friends. So that's why I'm here on the 31st of May. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, because the way I record it is I just talk and then I edit afterwards. So this could be, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 20, it could be longer. I don't know. I'm going to crash afterwards because it feels like my brain and my body are completely collapsing in around me, but I'm not going to go too far into that. Let's not get too depressing. But yeah, your girl's not been well, been tired, very, very tired, and hoping this doesn't become chronic. So must look after myself. But I thought, do you know what? I've been on a winning streak with my monthly uploads, so let's still continue that. Anyway, what is this? Almost 4 minutes into the episode, and we haven't talked about what we're going to talk about yet. I did give you a bit of foreshadowing though. I did say it's not going to be sweet, but it might be, sour and spooky and swampy, because we are, of course, back to that was a bad... Sorry, that was a bad way of going straight back into it. I was going to say, of course, we're back to Scotland, as if all Scottish myths and legends are like swampy and sour and spooky. They do have a lot of spooky though. They do have a lot of spooky. But no, we are going to be talking about waterhoerses today, the Scottish Kelpie, one of my favourite folkloric creatures. Horrifying, truly the stuff of, horrible visceral nightmare, but there we go. I love them, and so will you after this, hopefully, because you'll be like, well, thank God she's not waffling on anymore. Think again, I waffle on all the time, even when I'm talking to you about horrifying folkloric shape-shifting evil creatures that pull you to your doom. Spoiler alert. Anyway, let's dive into it. So what is the Scottish waterhorse, the Kelpie? Imagine you're going for a lovely moonlit walk along the side of a loch, and suddenly, before you, you see a gleaming, shining stallion, the most beautiful, magnificent horse you have ever seen. White fur glimmering in the moonlight, and you're bewitched. You cannot help but put one foot in front of the other, extend your hand to touch the mane of this fantastic creature. At first, its body is soft and cool to the touch. What a beautiful creature, you think to yourself. This is a steed of the fairies, not of this mortal realm. You are correct. You begin to feel cold, not cool, but icy cold. And in front of your very eyes, the body of the horse transforms, covering your hand, your arm, your shoulder, your whole body, until you are glued to the horse. You cannot escape from the horse. Its face transforms in front of you, eyes black, horrifying, nightmarish. And it turns, your body and its body as one. It turns to the water and dives down below. Did you like that? That was quite fancy, wasn't it? Should I start doing little segments like that in all of my episodes? Because like that was like quite engaging, wasn't it? That's like something you'd hear on a proper podcast. Don't excuse me, don't bring me down. If you're like, do you know what, that was subpar. That was subpar, childish goosebumps nonsense. I'll have none of it. Don't let me know because I'm fragile at the moment. So, as you heard, a Kelpie is a horse, although I have also read folk tales where a Kelpie can take on the form of a beautiful man or a beautiful woman, and it exists near bodies of water, okay? So my main advice to you is, much like I've covered in other topics on this podcast, just don't go up to random creatures, by bodies of water. Just don't do it. Or like deep in the forest, if they're like washing blood out of rags by a tiny little stream, deep in the forest, and they've got like stringy white hair and they're probably don't go up to them. Don't approach. Do you know what I mean? Just creep on by. Try and get your sneak level to 100. Get on past that creature and get on home safe. Okay, but if you are silly enough to approach a horror, well, no, do you know what? You wouldn't be silly. You wouldn't be silly because that is the trickery of the Kelpie. They appear to be something really rather beautiful to entice you. So I take it back. I take it back. You would not be foolish or silly if you were caught in its spell and you did think, oh my God, that's really beautiful to be standing next to this ugly old puddle. I'm going to go touch it. That puddle's probably deeper than you think. Okay, just be wary. Despite my little story session there, where my Kelpie is all the colour of moonlight, usually they're described as the colour of midnight. They're black horses. Beautiful, magnificent, shining, wonderful, ethereal black horses. But they can take on the shapes of other creatures and humans and, like I mentioned. Now, they primarily inhabit the area around lochs in Scotland, although I do think there are also Irish Kelpies as well, and I'm going to get into it a little bit later in the episode, how similar these are to other creatures in other parts of the world as well. Spoiler alert, they are very similar. But one thing I find particularly interesting about the Kelpie is that other than a few stories where they're more kind of benevolent or nice, most of the time they're horrifying. They're really, really creepy and just not very good at all. Now, when the Kelpie takes on human form, it is said to still retain its hoofs. Hooves. It's hooves. That does not behoove you. Behoove, that's a word, isn't it? It's hooves. Hoofs. I say hoofs. Like tuth. Like tooth is tuth. I say tuth. What do you say? Do you say hoove or hoof? Let me know. Let me know. So anyway, it retains its hooves even in human form. So basically it's like one of the, like a satire or something. Is it, again, satire? I don't know how you're supposed to bloody say them. I don't know how you're supposed to bloody say anything. My brain don't work right now. Or ever. This is just a convenient excuse. I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft lately because I haven't really been able to leave my house because, as mentioned previously, my body and brain feel like they are collapsing in on themselves. And anyone play World of Warcraft? Because you have all the satires there. Very creepy creatures, and there's lots of like folklore and mythology around different parts of the world that are kind of incorporated into that video game and into lots of other video games. But I don't think I've ever seen a Kelpie. Don't think I've ever seen a Kelpie-like creature in that game. If there are Kelpies that pop up in video games that you've played, or films you've seen, or media that you've consumed, let me know, because as I've done with other episodes, I love when pop culture kind of gets its lovely little mitts on folklore, and we end up seeing folkloric creatures in books, TV, video games, that kind of thing. I think it's really cool, actually. I love it. So let me know. One such example is the wonderful statues that I've, unfortunately not seen in person. I would like to. I wanted to go to Scotland this year, and then I just didn't have money because, everything, it just costs money to live. But one day I'm going to go up to Scotland and I'm going to see the wonderful Kelpie statues at Falkirk in Scotland. Now, these, I think they've only been there for about 10 years, like 30 foot tall, like magnificent giant horse heads just like coming out of the ground. Very creepy and very awesome. We appreciate that, Scotland. Celebrate your folklore. Love to see it. And this seems fitting, to be honest, because I think basically every large body of water in Scotland, every loch, is associated with a Kelpie story. So these are very widespread, prevalent pieces of folklore that have kind of captured people's minds. Now, I think this particularly works because with lots of folklore, lots of them are entertaining. These stories are entertaining. They're meant to entertain. But some of them are kind of like survival tips. Do you know, I should write a little book, Folklore Survival Tips, how to live in a fairy-ridden world. Let me know if you would buy that, please. I could probably do with the money. But my folklore survival tip would be, for the Kelpie, is don't get inordinately drunk and walk around bodies of water. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that, everyone's drunk that has spotted a Kelpie, but it probably doesn't hurt, does it? Now, the first written record of Kelpie as a folkloric mythological creature was by William Collins in 1759. Now, that's just first written, as you will well know if you've listened to this podcast for any kind of length of time, is that lots of these stories have existed in an oral fashion. They've existed within communities without having to write them down much earlier than their first kind of written record. But even if we're going just from that first written record, this is 250 years of over 250 years of Scottish spookiness at its very best. But on the subject of written records, there has been a little bit of debate on the Kelpie itself. So there is a similar type of creature called the uisce. I'm very sorry, that is probably pronounced horrifyingly wrong, which has the quality of the self-adhesive skin and then dragging you down to the bottom of a loch and basically eating you all up, yum, 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 except letting your liver, I think, kind of float to the top of the water. So that's a nice image, isn't it? That's a nice image to have on a Wednesday afternoon. Though some people ascribe that to the Kelpie, as I sort of did in my story, but some people make the distinction that it's a totally separate creature. So there are lots of waterhoerses in Scotland, the Kelpie, as I've said, the uisce, and there's lots of other types of ones that I'm probably not going to get into too much today, but the uisce is again, I'm probably pronouncing that so bad, whatever. That is the vicious one. That's the nasty, nasty, nasty one. I don't think there's any examples of that one being nice at all. So that one is all about kind of dragging you down to the bottom of the loch and, eating you up. And like I said, letting your liver float to the surface. So definitely stay away from bodies of water. Never go on holiday to Scotland. No, I'm joking. Please go on holiday to Scotland. And I would like to join. I'm very jealous. Now, apparently it was very common for this type of water horse to take on the form of a very handsome man, and the only thing that would distinguish it from kind of a normal mortal man was the sort of sand and reeds and kind of water plants in its hair. So because of this, people were said to be very wary of animals and stragglers and lone people by the waterside. And if you, for whatever reason, wanted to bring out one of these creatures, tempt them from their watery lair, you could waft the lovely smell of roasted meat, and they would come out for that. So I'm not sure why you'd want to, but that would be a new fun prank for the teenagers, wouldn't it? Bring out the murderous human-eating folkloric beast from its cold, watery lair. Now, it seems that Scottish folklorist John Gregerson Campbell captured lots of stories of the Ichushka and kind of had lots of really scary, spooky encounters. Well, he didn't have encounters, but he described lots of people's encounters who survived the horrible ordeal, and they survived it in a number of ways. So one chap was said to escape the back of this creature. He was riding atop it, and he put both sides of his feet on the side of a narrow path, and then as this creature was running through the path, he was just kind of lifted off through sheer force of will and force of creature running and you staying still. There's probably a scientific term for that, but brain don't work right now. And there's also a really scary story of a young chap whose hand kind of gets stuck to the creature's fur or hide. What do horses have? Can someone let me know? I'm not a horsey person. Maybe because I've read too much folklore, but no, I don't dislike horses. I think they are magnificent. And I'm a rural person, I'm from a rural area, but I've just never been very horsey. No judgment to anyone that is. I think it would be like the most cool thing to just be like galloping in a field atop a horse's back. If you do that, well done. I think that's really cool. I think you're like super badass. But it just couldn't be me. I'm a wimp. I'm a little goblin gremlin. It's not the life for me. I'm not like this heroic, beautiful, heroic maiden, Rhiannon riding atop my white steed. No, I'm just a little gremlin, just rolling in the mud. But yeah, another story is of a young chap that has his hand kind of stuck to the adhesive fur hide of the horse, the body of the horse, and he chops his hand off to be free of it, which, if you're going to go full 100% saw on this, then I guess that's a way to survive. I watched that at a very impressionable age. I was in love with Adam, so you can understand. I was quite horrified by the whole thing. It did give me a childish crush on Lee Winnell for many years. Hope he's doing well. Now, I'm only bringing up this creature because a lot of the stories that we have of Kelpie seem to be kind of mixed up or mistranslated or sort of anglicised or what have you, lost in translation, and actually seem to kind of correlate with this creature. There's lots of other water horses, and I will cover those at another time. This was primarily about the Kelpie. There's lots of water horses found in other parts of the world, though, so I'll briefly kind of mention that. Won't get too much into the Celtic ones because, save some more content for me later on. But there's Germanic versions of this types of creature. There's Scandinavian versions of this type of creature. The reason I didn't use specific names then is because there are many. The Nixie, the Nix, the Nacken, the Nikor, the Nocken, the Knock, all found in Germanic folklore. There's also an Australian bunyip, I think. There's a Central American wiwin. all malevolent sort of water spirits. In fact, talking about pop culture, the Bramble the Mountain King, which I think is a new video game, a 2023 video game, which I'd love to play, but my computer is genuinely decrepit. It is like an old relic that I have uncovered from a dusty, cobwebbed tomb. I've had to go tomb raiding for my computer. Anyway, one of the bosses in Bramble the Mountain King is the Naken. It's a horrifying water spirit, so there you go. If you know of any creepy water spirits, malevolent water spirits, waterhoerses from other cultures, then let me know as well, because I'm assuming basically that every region that has bodies of water probably has stories associated with those bodies of water. You know, it's a good idea to attach stories to geological and kind of landscape monuments, or, you know, whatever, to ensure people's safety, right? You don't want people walking home at night alone, which is why there's loads of stories about, you know, spirits and whatever coming at you in the night, in the dead of the night, if you happen to be on the road by yourself. You don't want to be falling down and drowning in bodies of water, which is why there's loads of stories about creatures jumping out of lochs and pools and rivers and streams, you know, across the world. So essentially, yes, hopefully you enjoyed that spooky, sour, swampy episode. And if you liked my little interlude there with the music and everything, then let me know and I'll do it more often. I should do it more often, because the other day I got slapped with a surprise £100 subscription to Storyblocks, which, you know, I downloaded essentially years ago because it gives you a catalogue of kind of royalty-free music, and I thought that would come in handy. And I used it a couple of times, then, you know, never used it again. So a surprise £100 actually wasn't hugely detrimental to me because of Patreon. So Patreon helps me cover the subscription costs of hosting this podcast and all that sort of stuff, but also other subscriptions like that. So it was able to kind of absorb that blow for me. So thank you very much. And I'm also going to just say a big thank you to some of my newest patrons on Patreon real quick. Do you know what? I actually really don't like the Patreon app. It really bugs me because it's just giving me new patrons of the last 30 days, and it's saying Horse Farmer and Megan Rose Wooliver. So so a bit weirdly relevant there, Horse Farmer. Thank you, Horse Farmer, and thank you, Megan Rose Wooliver. Hopefully I pronounced that name correctly. Like I say in previous episodes, you know, I'm never gonna put episodes on Patreon behind that pay barrier, but anyone that does join on there and support me, it is really massively appreciated. I have been posting a lot more on there recently, like just little personal tidbits, little videos of my walks with Bailey, and kind of asking for potential ideas in the future, and that sort of thing. So yeah, please join me on there if you fancy it. But if you don't, that's absolutely fine. I'm still going to bug you with all these wonderful stories and share them with you. Also, I'm a dumb ass. Any children listening, don't repeat that word, especially not to your parents. I don't think they'd be impressed. But I'm a dumbass. I didn't realise that Storyblocks also gives me a bunch of videos, like royalty-free like videos that I can, like stock images and stuff like that I can use. So now my beady little brain is thinking, you know, as if you could cope with your podcast and your other life commitments. Now we're thinking about possibly, you know, uploading little mini mythology videos on YouTube. So who knows if that comes to fruition. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. It wouldn't clash with my podcast. I guess I could reuse content from the podcast and that sort of thing. But if you want some nifty little visual videos, then let me know. YouTube is at the forefront of my brain lately because I've barely been leaving my house and I've been watching a lot of YouTube video essays. So that was 25 minutes, so maybe it wasn't so short and sweet. I have babbled a lot though, so I'll leave you to get on. Pleasure speaking to you all and sharing stories, and hopefully I will speak to you all soon.